Cliff Young was a 61-year-old sheep farmer. He lived in Australia, and he had about 2,000 sheep that he kept track of, and he worked with. And what's interesting is that he entered the Australian ultra marathon, 544 miles. It's a continuous race. And so he enters it, and the gun goes off, and he trails the leaders by quite a bit. They run all the way until evening, and all the professional runners stop and they sleep for 6 hours. But Young only slept for 2, got up and kept running. He took the lead that next day and never surrendered it after that. The next day, as he stopped to get water, the questions began. They began asking him lots of questions, like, "Hey, I don't think I've ever seen you before. Where else have you ran?" And he said, "Nowhere. It's my first race." And they go like, "Why did you pick this race?" "I don't know. Just looked like it was a good race to pick." Like, "Well, tell me about your training." "I don't have any formal training. I was just brought up in the Australian outback, and that's it. My training is chasing after sheep on my farm." And what's interesting, if you watch any of this, any of these news clips, this guy has a unique lope when he runs. It's almost like he has a hip injury is what it looks like, which makes it even a little more odd for him to lead this race. And the third day comes, and he's made all the national newspapers. Crowds become it's like the Forrest Gump deal. For crowds become to come out, and they become to line up and cheer him on. And so he runs that next day. He stops, and he only sleeps 1 hour that next evening, and he gets up and runs on. The fourth day, he's made international news. It's all over the place, and it's kind of crazy. On the fifth day, he finishes the race. It was 5 days, 14 hours, and 39 minutes that he had ran, the equivalent of almost 4 marathons a day. And the closest runner to him was 10 hours away when he crossed the finish line. So you can imagine the kind of the upset in the professional running world, especially ultra marathons, that this guy, nobody knew, nobody had a clue. He had no support. He had no training. He had no science on running background at all, except what he had done for a living. And he wins this race. He actually broke the record for that particular marathon. Now, I tell you that story because we love a good, I do anyway, the Western culture mostly loves a good underdog story. We just kind of do. We like to be surprised. We like people who pull themselves up from their bootstraps. We like hearing the unusual, these unusual surprises. And then we just like it, but we get behind it and we cheer them on. They quickly become with a heavy fan base. And I tell you that story because, in Jesus' day, there was no such thing as anybody who liked an underdog story. As a matter of fact, it was just the opposite. Actually, if you had an underdog story, you tried to hide it. You did not share it. You tried to maybe pick up maybe anything that looked good in your life and tried to start there. The deal was if you if you entered into any, especially public arena, you started here and you aspired to be here. Okay, you started already pretty high. It's unlike today. Sometimes politicians will kind of glamorize their background, especially if it's something that is like makes them look like I arrived here on my own, right? Because they want you to relate to them, right? And so in Jesus' day, that was never ever talked about or shared in any way. And so when Jesus, he's going to, in chapter 6, he's going to leave Capernaum and he's going to go southwest about 25 miles, would have probably taken him 2 or 3 days to get there. And we're going to pick up in the beginning of chapter 6 and verse 1. It says, Jesus left there and went to his hometown accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard were amazed. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. Where did this man get these things? They asked. What's this wisdom that he has been given? What are these remarkable miracles that he is performing? They roll with the questions, right? And so to put this in perspective, when we think about it for a second, so Jesus has, they're gonna go into his background a little bit. First of all, he for his first 30 years, he's been a laborer. Okay, is this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son, the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? And look at that. And they took offense at him. Okay? And so they begin to ask these questions. And there's a couple of different reasons for this. First of all, Jesus was a brilliant teacher. I mean, the things that we've read just so far in Mark, show that over and over and over. He's a brilliant teacher. The field of rabbinical teaching, and it still kind of is today, it's highly competitive. Okay, every young boy aspired to be a great teacher, and every mom and dad, this was like making the NBA, guys. This is like making the major leagues. This is a big deal. And it's not only a big deal in the Hebrew community, but in the Greco-Roman world, in which this is all taking place in, rhetorical skills are highly sought after. They're highly admired. And so if you can speak and you can teach and you can hold people's attention, it is a prized possession. Okay? And so when Jesus comes, so it also, let me explain this to you. Also, when we think of Jesus coming to his home, so basically he's gone to his hometown. Okay, so let's think about that for a minute, because we're like, hang on, wasn't his hometown Bethlehem? When he born in Bethlehem? It's like, yeah, he was born in Bethlehem, for sure. But remember, they didn't stay there very long. The king was out to kill him. They left the country, went to Egypt. They came back, and they settled in Nazareth. Okay? And that's where he was raised, was in Nazareth. All right? And it's a hilly, rocky place. Of course, all that is hilly and rocky. I've been there. It probably, in that day, it was probably 300 or 400 people that were in that area. It is a small, no-name town. Okay? Matter of fact, when some of the disciples are talking about Jesus, they go to some of their friends and they say, I have found him. We've found the Messiah. We've found this guy. And the guy they're talking to even says, like, hang on, Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? right? This is the situation. That's the backdrop in which this is going, the direction this is going. And so when he shows up, these people who know him, I'll never. I can go to my home church now, and nobody would know me. But I remember showing up there. I remember coming back and ministering not far from there, probably about 20 minutes, 30, 40 minutes with traffic. And I remember going there, and I remember people seeing me, and they were like, "Hey, are you Rob?" It's like, "Yep, I'm Rob." Yep. It's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" It's like, "Oh, well, I minister at a church about 30 minutes from here." And they go, "Really?" And they remember me all for the wrong reasons, right? They remember me because, like, wasn't this the guy that made his youth leader cry? True. Wasn't this the guy that, got us kicked off the trolley downtown? True. Wasn't this the guy that, when the room was full of sand, took the sand and put it in another room? True. This is the guy. This is the guy that would move staff people's cars around if they leave their keys in them. This is the guy. They remember me for all the reasons. And then they were like, didn't we hire you as an intern at one time? It's like, "Yeah, I interned here 3 times, actually." And they go, and it's like, "Did you make it through Bible college?" Kind of. And they were remembering me, but there was some questions, right? Jesus comes on the scene, and they remember Jesus. They have some questions, but the questions weren't they were like, "How can this be? He does not. This guy does not fit our picture of any kind of rabbi, because Jesus would not have had any official rabbi training, because he was a laborer until he was 30. He did not follow a rabbi around like normal people do in the day. He just started. He got baptized by John the Baptist, and he went out in the wilderness, had this retreat, remember, with no food. Sounds miserable, right? And the devil tempted him, and then he starts his ministry. And they're like, you were a laborer. Now, I question whether he was actually a carpenter or not. You can argue that all day. He probably worked with stone more than he did with wood, because that was the main building material. But I'm not going to argue that. He was a laborer through and through, and they knew it. That did not fit the picture of any rabbi that they had seen up until that point. So the way this worked was he would go teach because he's there, right? Now it does not work. It did not work like it does today, right? Like I teach a lot most of the time here, right? That's not the way it would work at the little synagogues. They would have a different teacher probably every Sabbath, okay? And they had some amazing teachers even come through Nazareth, all right? And so obviously Jesus has their attention because he is a brilliant teacher, but they have a view of a rabbi that doesn't meet up with Jesus's background, okay? And this is important for us to understand, because we can get tripped up on this stuff all the time as well. But the second reason we need to consider is it was just that his particular that they knew that he was a laborer. But listen to, did you catch it? Listen, when they ask about him, they say, isn't his mom Mary? Isn't he the son of Mary? Okay. That's like the only time you hear anybody addressed like in the Bible, because that's not how you would ever address somebody. Even if their father was dead and deceased, you would use the father's name. Now, there's all kinds of people that take this all kinds of directions, but it could mean actually that they were questioning Jesus, whether Jesus was a legitimate child in the family, okay? And some of them probably maybe remember. It's like, I remember hearing about you and your mom and your dad weren't married when she was pregnant. They may, who knows? They may remember those type of things, but the way that he's addressed would have been very offensive. And they meant it to be because they were offended. They were set back by it. They were very skeptical about the whole thing. It would be like me. It would be like it'd be like me and maybe Ryan. It's like, hey, Ryan, I'm good at chemistry. I know you are too because you're a pharmacist, right? And it's like, hey, I have a lab set up in my basement. I don't really, so Breaking Bad or something, right? And it's like, hey, come over. I want you to come over and check this out because I've found the cure for cancer, okay? And I need you to help me pitch it to Eli Lilly. We're going to have a meeting downtown Indianapolis, and we need to go to the next phase, and I'm going to need money, okay? And Ryan would know already. He would you aren't going to get in there. And they'll be like, why? Because the first question they're going to ask is like, okay, we want to see your lab, and we want to make sure it's certified, right? And not only that, but we want to see where you got your PhD at in chemistry. It's like, and I'd be going, I don't have one, and I don't have a lab that's been certified. And they'd be like, okay, well, we're not, we're done talking, right? They would want to know my background. They would want to know that I was legit. They would want to know, all of it, right? And it's a similar idea here with Jesus. They're asking similar questions that we could put in perspective. And this idea that the being of the right social class, being from the right family, Jesus has come to turn all that upside down, and they see it and they're offended. They're just like, this isn't the way this works, okay? And so this is the famous. You hear this quote all the time. And Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives, and his own home." Okay, and this is right, and we know this, right? We know this. We've already seen his family show up, right? They've already shown up. When Jesus was teaching, they're like, "Hey, we're going to get him because he's lost his marbles. We're just here to collect him, right?" And they had the white van and the white little shirt for him to wear and all that, right? And they that they didn't even believe him. And so this probably Jesus probably nothing surprises Jesus, although he does say something interesting. He says he could not do any miracles there except laying his hands on a few sick people and healing them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. A few chapters back in chapter 4, when Jesus teaches his second parable, it's the parable of the sower. We went through that together. And this is a great reminder and a great picture of that parable, because it's about the soil, it's about the heart, and it always will be, and it will always be about faith, and it will be like, what kind of condition is your heart in, and what kind of steps of faith are you willing to make, right? And we see this throughout the Gospels. We see this in this particular story, that the greatest obstacle to faith is not that God hasn't done something or moved. It's us. It's the soil that the seed has been scattered on. It's not having a hard heart. And so this no-name manual labor guy with no credentials from a town that nobody's ever heard of, they reject him. Even that little town does. And it's a picture of what is coming, right? It's a picture of the ultimate rejection from all of humanity, right? Of who he came to be. You see, Jesus, the Messiah, he was the Messiah, fully human, fully God. Mark does a marvelous job in showing us that, showing this picture. And often we think of things in hindsight, don't we? If I'd only bought Bitcoin when it was, when nobody knew what it was, right? If I'd only invested in, Macintosh before it became Apple, right? That'd be, if I, and we often think in hindsight about what we would do later, right? After we find out what the truth is about some of these things. But Jesus has come and he said that, it's prophesied, right? He will be rejected. He will not meet the standard in which people wanted Jesus to meet. He will not look like he wanted to be. And this is the problem for a lot of us. A lot of us have a problem with God because he's not moving and acting in ways that we think that he should, when he should, how he should, and it doesn't look like it how we think it should, right? So the problem isn't with God moving and God doing his part, it's with us, always. And so we read on, it says, then Jesus went around from village to village, calling the 12 to him, and he began to send them out 2 by 2, and he gave them authority over impure spirits. These were his instructions. Take nothing for the journey except your staff. No bread, no bag, no money in your belt. Wear sandals, but do not take an extra shirt. Whenever you enter a house, stay there until you leave that town. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, leave that place, shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. And they went out and preached that the people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. This is interesting. And the other Gospels have similar pictures here of disciples being sent out. But you think about, at this point, you think it's like, hang on, Jesus hasn't died, he hasn't come out of the grave yet, and he's already kind of, because we know, right? If you've been here very long, we sat and went through every chapter and verse of Acts, right? They were told to wait until the Spirit came upon them, right? Because he was going to have the power. But Jesus says, listen, you have seen me rejected. Yeah, check this out. He shows them, right? He leads it. They leave. He says, okay, guess what? Your turn. And they weren't ready, right? And he even makes it so, like, hey, he kind of stacks the deck against them. It's like, hey, don't bring anything extra with you. Assuring that they would have to really lean in faith, right, in this journey. They just get to take a stick with them, a staff. And everything else is just the clothes they're wearing. And then he gives them strict instructions to stay in that house if it's hospitable. If it's not, well, leave there, shake the dust off your feet, and move on. And it's interesting, they preached that they should repent. They should turn to God. The kingdom of God is near. And so, for us, when we look at Jesus, sometimes Jesus, He doesn't act how we want him to act sometimes. He doesn't answer our prayers. God does things a little differently than we can imagine. But and if we can get through that and we can move forward and we can listen to Jesus, and he says, listen, I have a job for you to do. It's real simple. It takes really no prep work. You don't have to save up the plane ticket to go anywhere. You don't have to get your passport. You don't have. He said, I just want you to go out from house to house, and I want you to go around, and I want you to tell people that the kingdom is near and that they should turn to God. Now, when we think about this task that's been given to them, you think about, I think about, and this is what keeps a lot of people from doing it. I think about, how can I mess this up, right? How could I get this wrong? Maybe I would say something up here. And I've made mistakes up here because I've gotten emails from you. Some of you, you're all kind mostly. But it was like it's kind of daunting. It's like, what if I cause somebody to like stumble and go off the rails and they don't they don't get to heaven because of me? It's not your job to get anybody to heaven. Okay? It's not your job to have the delivery of whatever God is, to whoever God has brought you to have it be perfect and flawless. You present the Jesus that you know to the people that God has brought you to, and God will do the rest. But he tells them to travel light. I think it's interesting. Because I'm one of these guys, when I go on a backpack trip, I take a little bit of everything with me, and then about halfway, I'm throwing it on the ground. I'm just leaving it. And the people that are with me is like, you can't do that. It's like, yeah, watch me. I'm doing it, Or I'm trying to burn stuff in the fire. It's like, you can't do that. It's like, watch me, because I'm not carrying it anymore, right? When we travel light, God can use us in ways that we can never imagine, because we're leaning fully in Him. And so, this idea that when we're rejected, we don't see Jesus. We don't see Jesus take it super personally, and He's offering the same to you. It's like, just shake the dust off your feet and keep moving forward. I have somewhere else for you to be, right? But I want to ask you this question. I'm going to ask the band to make their way up. And I want to ask you these two questions. And you may have gotten a card that has these two questions on them. And I want you to think for a minute with me. Because we've all been called by God to go share who Jesus is. And you can't do that unless you know who He is and have a proper perspective of Him, first of all. So if you haven't done that, then we need to talk. But let me ask you this. Where is God sending you? Where is it? Does God have you, do you feel like God has you or is calling you to a place that it may be unique, maybe that you really didn't maybe view as a place where He's sending you to share who He is? Maybe it's where you work, maybe it's with your family. By the way, if it is with your family, that can be some of the most difficult things to navigate. And we see Jesus' family not even, accept Him for who He was. So I would say, hang in there, don't give up. And maybe it's at school, or maybe it's at with a group of people that maybe you've not even met yet, but you're looking for. So you may have a specific thing. And I just want to encourage you to maybe just write that on that card that I've given you. Some of you, when I mention this, going and sharing, God sending you to somebody to share who He is. Well, you already have the picture of the face of who that is. And I would encourage you to write their first name on that card. And if you will allow us, you don't have to, but if you will allow us, if you'll leave that card in your seat, we will pray over that on Monday. The importance of what Jesus is giving his disciples the opportunity to do becomes a command. It's not something that's optional for us. And I would like you to think about from this perspective that, we have a few weeks until Easter comes. And it's people are apt to say yes to a real invitation for them to come to church, especially during a special season like Easter or Christmas. And I would encourage you. We want to be a church that's mobilized to that we're sent out. This is just an outpost of where we're sent out from to do ministry and to tell people about the hope that we have in Christ. And so we have a couple of different things, if you want them to use, to help invite. We have door hangers that have all our information of our services. We also have this little disc. It's kind of hard to, it's unique, kind of hard to lose, or maybe it's easy to lose, I don't know, but we'll find out. But it's got all the information. We have some things that could help you in that process. We also have some yard signs. If you're a yard sign person, we have those for you to do. But we're going to sing this song, and what I want you to do is, if this is all a new idea to you, or nothing comes to mind, I don't know where I'm supposed to where my place is, God. I don't know maybe who, or maybe you do. Either way, I'm just going to encourage you while we sing this song to sit there for a few minutes and just ask God. God, is this where I'm supposed to be sharing who you are at? Is this who I'm supposed to be sharing who you are with? And then, as we have some time in that, we'll invite you to stand and sing with us. But let's just spend a few minutes together.